Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Pod Save the Youth. I'm one of your hosts for today, Delnaz.
And I'm your co-host, David Seaton.
Today, we're going to be talking about demonstrations that have taken place in both the US and the UK surrounding the rise of the far right and far right policies and rhetoric we have seen. We have two incredible guests today, Nicole and Leslie. So I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting with Nicole and then Leslie. Could you give a brief introduction, the work you do, and why you're interested to speak about this today?
Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Maldonado. I'm currently in Oklahoma City, the United States, Oklahoma. And I'm currently working at the ACLU, but I'm also the vice president of LULAC Oklahoma chapter. One of the reasons why I think that it's really important to talk about all of the demonstrations that are happening here in the United States is just because people need to understand across the world, right? And just across the country, why are we doing these demonstrations? Why they're so meaningful for us and why they're so important for the movement that we're creating, because it is a movement what we're doing right now. So I think that that's super important. And yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. My name's Leslie Freire. I am a freshman at the Oklahoma City Community College. I was born and raised here in the south side of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in the United States. At OCCC, my community college, I am in a club called the Hispanic Student Association, where I serve as vice president. But outside of college, I am actually in LULAC as well with Nicole, serving the board member. And I am here to definitely talk about the demonstrations going on here. And my purpose of being here is mostly to help create a more progressive state. And my main goal is to mostly help people, achieve their goals and make sure they have the tools and resources to succeed in whatever path they choose.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Really happy to have you both on. So, what prompted me to want to do this episode is that I found it so interesting that there's demonstrations not only all over the US for obvious reasons that we know, but all over the world because there are similar things happening everywhere. So, I'm currently in London, as you both know, and I attended the Women's March, which was during the People's March, which I know, Leslie, you attended, and maybe Nicole, you did too, I'm not sure. And I also attended a demonstration with Stand Up to Racism here. It was, I believe, just a few Saturdays ago. And I mean, they spoke very broadly. They definitely mentioned Donald Trump and hateful rhetoric coming from him. And the right in America in general, and they also spoke about the rise of reform in the UK, rise of sexism, racism, how people are becoming so comfortable using all those hateful terms in work or wherever it may be. So now turning back to Oklahoma, I know you both attended different demonstrations. So I want to start with Nicole. What was your experience like? What was like being in Oklahoma, which is a very red state? Um, did people turn up? What was the energy like?
So yeah, actually, the people. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. I found it very interesting that you guys were in the women's march there, and at the same time that the people's march was happening here, because I also seen that it's a worldwide movement. The far right rising like is something that is happening across the world. And then that's where we come up. Like that's why we have to like. That's why it's so important to create the movement to build our community. But to talk a little bit about the People's March, I was actually one of the main organizers, and I got to speak at the People's March. And something that happened that it was very interesting for me. Not it never happened before. When I'm speaking at some event or something, then I was just like doing my speech, and in the middle of the speech, I start like tearing up. And I guess it's just because like we're seeing so many injustices and like so much hateful rhetoric that I guess my body was carrying that, and seeing like all of the people that turn out, because we had like around 300 people show up. And I was very surprised because we had like a meeting with the executive director of Women's March, the United States, and then she came to Oklahoma City, and then we were talking about it. And then she was like, I saw the pictures and like I count people, and then around 300 people show up. And I was like, oh wow, because it was super cold. It was very cold. It was miserable. Leslie was there. But I think that seeing that so many people show up, and then seeing that, you know, through these tough times we chose to be united. I think that that's amazing. I think that that's like for me, that's like the main purpose of having a march or having a rally or a demonstration, is just to give hope, or, find your community and find your people. Sometimes in these red states, you can feel isolated. You can feel that, like, as a progressive or as a Democrat or as a liberal or even as a decent human being, there is like no more people like you. And these demonstrations, that they help because it shows people and it shows the community that there are more people like them.
Thank you so much. And I definitely agree with that part, that it makes you remember that you're not alone, because it can feel like that way sometimes when you're in your home scrolling and feeling angry. But whenever you see a big collective of people, it's wonderful. Similar question to you, Leslie. You went to the People's March as well. And I know you mentioned to me that you attended a demonstration regarding education in Oklahoma and the recent activities around ICE and immigration. So I also want to hear your experiences, and specifically if you have anything to add from a student's perspective.
Oh, yes. Um, well, the one from the Oklahoma State Department of Education, we did have the protest outside of the education building where they were holding the meeting for the proposal to check the status of children. And I think that was very special. I remember coming in, oh my gosh, there were so many people. Um, there's so much buzz on social media, people talking about it, and finally having that conversation, even if it's after the election. I mean, having a bunch of people talking about it and the importance of why we should stand up and speak about it and speak for our children. And it was just really beautiful. I remember this experience being there. This was the first time I've ever seen something like this, where we were there in the demonstration, we're hearing people speak, and all you see is this far right person making these crazy statements. I'm sure Nicole remembers this. He was across from us, and he had this his big microphone yelling these crazy stuff. And what I've seen was people, even if they weren't Hispanics or white people, black people, they were all gathering together, and what they did was like a human chain. And they just went across, and it was a one of the moments where I was like, wow, like we have allies and we're united. And that's something that no one can take away from us. No proposal can take away from us. No politician. That's something we'll always have. And it was very special. And also the People's March that Nicole helped organize, or the main organizer. Just hearing the speeches from everyone, it was it was touching, especially Nicole's. I mean, it almost made me tear up if the tear didn't freeze from the cold.
Thank you so much. It's really is beautiful to, be reminded that we do have allies all over the place. So from this, I gather that it is really all about the people and how well we can get ourselves energized and united to fight back. And so, David, I want to ask you a question, a bit different than what we've been talking about with the demonstrations. So, David, you work with a bunch of different groups with surrounding politics and advocacy. So, I wanted to ask, with all of this negative and hateful rhetoric that's flooding politics at the minute, what is the energy like in those spaces? You work with a lot of young people and others as well. Are people feeling like very overwhelmed and kind of apathetic to where they shut down? Or do you see people rising up and taking that anger and finding strategies to fight back? Or is it different in different places? What have you seen?
Yeah, look, we're still trying to figure out the pathway forward here. I think that this recent presidential election hit us really hard at the organizations that I work for. I work for context with College Democrats of America, where I'm the national programs deputy director. And I have seen over the past few months how we're a very divided party right now. We have some people who think that we lost the election because we're too progressive. Some people who think we lost the election because we're too moderate. Um, and I think that the reason why we lost the election is because we're out of touch. And I think that a lot of young people on the ground are feeling very apathetic right now because they don't know, again, what the pathway forward is. They don't know how we're going to win back any sort of power in the future when so many people across the country were motivated to vote for a convicted felon, someone who is clearly not fighting for the issues that we care about, so many people in our generation. So yeah, it's a scary time, and we have a lot to be concerned about. But I think that more recently, what I have seen, in line, particularly with what you said, Nicole, was that a lot of people are starting to find solutions in community. We're finding people who value us as people. And then we're working from that place of recognizing our collective humanity and then saying, how do we move forward from there? I think one of the areas that we've seen particular attention towards from the college Democrats, from organizations across the country, and what we've talked about today has been on the immigration side of things. I think that there is such a clear attack on our immigrant communities here in the United States. And that is certainly the clearest topic that Donald Trump was, advocating on in the election. And I think that we're starting to see a lot of energy in our college Democrats chapters across the country around starting to say, okay, how do we fight back on this particular issue? How do we defend our students on campus from attacks to their rights and freedoms to stay here in the United States and pursue the education that they fought so hard to achieve? I think that is really the issue that we're fighting our hardest on right now, because it's the most immediate concern for so many people.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but glad to hear that people are not giving up and are feeling energized as much as they can anyway. So, as people who are very involved in politics and various issues and who that have done organizing and other types of work in that arena, I want to talk about social media because that's what everybody uses to do anything. And it's very heavily used in politics. And so I wanted to ask each of you, all of you, what are some ways that you've seen social media used, whether it's to promote these demonstrations, reach people who maybe aren't as involved in politics, whether you might want to speak on young people who like aren't registered to vote, or even anybody, right, in our communities or even outside of our communities. Um, and if you haven't seen many great methods used, what are some ways you think regular people and also those who are in organizing roles could utilize social media to make an impact in this time?
I feel that social media right now in these moments, they have like the bad and the good, right? Um, Myself, I have limited myself on social media because of the amount of negative news that we have seen every day. It's so overwhelming, right? They're dealing with so much anxiety, they're dealing with so much anger, right? Frustration. They don't know what's gonna happen because there is so many different sources of media telling us something different, telling us that this has happened, but we don't know if that's true. So I think that right now, because we have so many like different sources, it's a little bit confusing, and overwhelming as well. I also like I have seen that we have, people have created like different groups to like reach out to different communities. We have Oklahomans Against Occupation, we have the Dyke March, we have Women's March OKC, we have Freedom Oklahoma, LULAC, and we try to do our best to reach out, as much people as we can. But I also think that for so many people, they have been like into this culture of thinking that by only sharing a post, that's enough. And I think that that's something that I personally, I always try to tell people it's not enough, especially in these moments. You have to do something more than sharing a post or liking a post or making a comment, because we need more community building on the ground. We need more like grassroots organizing. And I always try to tell people when I speak, when I go to events, when I table at events, like please volunteer in an organization, like yes, use social media to see what's happening in your community and share that, send it to your friends, but do the following step, right? And I think that that's one of my, I guess, main critics to social media, is that, you know, since it's so controlled, you just like scroll down and scroll down. There's like, okay, I'm just gonna share it and share it and share it. And so many people, sometimes they share like 100 things in their stories. You know, you're not gonna see all the 100 things sometimes, but just like a click, 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 click. So I don't know how much of of helpful that is, I have like my divisive thoughts on that, but I definitely think that we have to get into a culture that we need to start feeling more control doing something more than only sharing a post, because it's becoming so, people's like, well, I'm sharing it. Yeah, but like, are you helping an organization there? Are you supporting your local organization, your local businesses? Are you, coming to these event for deportation or immigration or LGBTQ rights or reproductive rights? And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it matters, because like I said before, I feel that in these moments we have to rely on our community, the people that are gonna be there with us fighting these battles, and we need to build those relationships. And I think that sometimes that's really hard through social media. So I think that personally, I'm choosing to like step back a little from social media and just focus more on grassroots organizing and face-to-face interactions.
I definitely agree with Nicole. Especially me who's always like on TikTok. Oh my gosh, it gets overwhelming real quick. Um, and I definitely agree going that extra mile. And I feel like social media could be a great asset if you're using it right. Especially I know recently with the ICE raids and um, having these deportations, we try to keep our community aware, especially the Hispanic community, spreading where they're at, so some places to avoid. But sometimes we get misinformed real quick because all we see is a picture of a regular police car, and so I think we have to be very careful with what we post and make sure not to create panic with social media. So I would definitely, if you see something suspicious like that, I would take a picture, go to someone reliable and to see what's going on, and spread facts, and only facts and resources as well. And that's where social media can be very beneficial, is spreading the know your rights and what to do if this happens. I think it could be very positive as long as we use it um, very carefully. um, and yeah, just spread awareness.
Yeah, I have a question for Delnaz and Leslie. I kind of I'm just wondering, I know Delnaz, you have been really involved in the deciphering of misinformation side of social media for a while. I was wondering, how do you figure out whether something around like an ICE raid is real or fake? Do you go on the news? Do you go on their website? What do you do?
Um, I'm going to pass this along to Leslie after giving my brief answer because I haven't done that specific type of deciphering with a picture of what could be maybe an ICE officer or something of the likes. But what I usually tell people for any sort of picture, like let's take a natural disaster, for example, right? There's two sides of it because one, it could be AI, or two, it could be just like a fake, like old or like misleading picture. So starting with the misleading picture one, there's been many times where someone's posted like, let's just say, disaster following an earthquake from like 10 years ago, and they use it to say, oh my gosh, this earthquake in California, look at the damage, when in reality it was like a, 1 or 2 point whatever magnitude, which I think is the correct measurements for earthquakes, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Okay. And so you can do reverse image search on Google for those types of images, which should bring up the original source. Although when it comes to these, if someone just took a picture on their phone, you can't reverse search it because it's just one person who took that image. It won't show up anywhere else. So I would definitely look at who posted it. Like Leslie said, if it's just like some random person who may or may not be reliable, you don't want to see that and run with it. So I think main thing is if it's out there, it's out there. But as somebody who wants to be responsible, don't share it. Don't send it to anybody until you kind of look at the person's profile. Who are they? Maybe if they seem like a genuine human being and not a bot, you can ask them a few questions. Where was this? And then get that information and ask somebody who is a trusted source, like somebody who's uh, very niche example, but like an ex law enforcement officer or something who's willing to help, or someone who does work in organizing who may have more information. Because even myself personally, if I see a picture like that, I wouldn't be able to say for sure whether it's real or fake if some random individual posted it. But I do want to pass it on to Leslie for anything else.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely try to make sure that the person who's posting the image is reliable. I haven't news-wise, I haven't really had any information of where these deportations are taking place, but I follow two specific people. A senator, Michael Brooks Jimenez. He even would go out the way to try to see if there's any sightings of ICE vehicles, and he'll go back to social media and reassure our community of what they've seen and what they haven't. Having these people post it first makes me makes me more confident in posting it and sharing it and bringing the awareness. But for sure those people on social media, and that's why I think social media is a great asset, because sometimes the news won't help you.
Right. What was the attorney's name again?
Javier Hernandez.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, he's
Um,
great.
yeah, that's really interesting to hear. State senator and an attorney helping. Social media is so complicated. I feel like I asked this question in whatever podcast I'm doing surrounding whatever topic. For me personally, same with you, Nicole. I kind of step back from it personally. Like, for example, on my personal Instagram, I don't even scroll anymore. And as is the same for all of us, I imagine, I have a lot of political content on mine. And it's hard because part of me is like, well, this is what I do. I have to stay informed, right? But when you're just scrolling, it's really like how it the format of it. You just keep going and keep going. And so instead of that, I'm like, okay, you know what? I will go listen to a podcast that will tell me this news instead while I'm cooking or
Or
something.
the news.
Still right, exactly, right? Yeah. So you're still getting informed and you're not scrolling, you're not seeing comments of people yelling at each other. It's just pretty awful to see. However, on the other hand, it is a great tool for alerting people of things and reaching out to those who may not watch the news. For example, the demonstrations in the UK and the organization that planned it, Stand Up to Racism, I only found out about them through social media. So with things like that, it can be really beneficial. I think we just have to find that balance. But thank you, Leslie, for bringing up the point about factual images and information, because that's really important. Um, the last topic I wanted to talk about is getting students involved, because students can be really powerful when they come together and fight for change. And so, starting with David and Leslie, since you both are current students, I want to see whether you've had experience organizing students, or maybe you were a part of a group of people who, whether it was demonstrated against something, took action online, whatever it may be. What are some tips you have for others who want to get involved, and what was your experience like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can start. I have not personally been involved in the, stand up to racism protests, or, any of the protests in the wake of the Trump inauguration, but I do know friends who have been involved in one particular protest called the 50501 protests that took place, I believe, 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday. And I know, and basically in every state across the country, students went to their state capitals and protested for a whole bunch of different causes, but primarily for immigrant rights and the rights of LGBTQ people. A number of my friends did go, and to be honest, they were scared. They were scared of what the reaction would be. Even in here in Boston, where I am, a liberal, a very liberal city, they were worried about their safety, and whether they could be tracked, and whether they could be put in danger for just standing up for their beliefs. So this is a scary time, and I say kudos to all those who are standing up and making their voices heard especially students, who are standing up in this moment, because the stakes are really high and it's a scary time. And I know when my friends, when I made sure I called them afterwards to make sure that they got home okay, and some of them shared their location with me, and I made sure that even though I wasn't there, I was doing my part to support them and make sure that they were safe. And, even if you can't participate, doing that, just giving them a quick call afterwards, seeing how they're doing, making sure that they're physically safe, and that if something happened that, they wanted to talk about, or a story that they heard really affected them, that you're there to listen is super important.
Yes, for sure. I'm gonna go into this as a student who used to not really be political. I never really cared for politics at all. I wasn't even registered to vote. Um, it was like that until there was a bill specifically that hit Oklahoma, also an anti-immigration bill called HB 4156. And that was the first time, oh my gosh, that was the first time I felt the fear of my friends, my family. And that was the first time I actually wanted to do something. So a couple days later, I hosted, this was the first time I've ever been to a protest, I guess. And it was when I hosted at my school. I did a walkout at my high school. And I think ever since then, it hit not only me, but my classmates and my community that, I mean, we can't just react to everything. We have to respond, and we have to do things before and not wait until something bad happens. And I think we're especially learning that lesson right now, um, with the election and everything. And yeah, I think, even after the election, at my club, the Hispanic Student Association, we just saw a lot of people in the meeting, and we know that things like this are affecting them. Um, but that is why we have to, prepare, but also be educated and informed always, and continue to inform others as well, and tell and share your stories, to show people where you're coming from, and why you're doing what you're doing, why you're going to this protest, why you're going to this demonstration. I mean, I think it's important to help educate others, and take some action. Even if it may be too late, there's never too late. I think you could always speak up, uh, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and I think we should continue to do that. And yeah, and hopefully, hope for change in the future, and not wait till something bad happens, but get prepared and have our younger folks start getting registered to vote, and not be like me and wait until something actually is going to affect me. I think that's not the way to go. I think if we want to move forward and really improve and make a difference, that's impactful and positive, I think we should start educating our younger ones and getting them registered to vote.
Thank you for sharing how you got started. It's inspiring. Now, Nicole, as someone in an organizing role who does so many things, what is your advice, or what tips do you have for students who want to get involved with, for example, the ACLU? Because I think not many people are aware that with many of these organizations, you can reach out and ask to volunteer. And you really don't have to have experience. Speaking for myself, when I volunteered for my first presidential campaign when I was 14, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know how to make a phone call, and they just, gave me a script and they just led me through it, and they want to help. So any advice that you would like to share for those in high school or college or whoever it may be who wants to get
Yeah,
involved?
I think that, yeah, this is my job, recruitment. Um, I feel that an advice is, you know, don't be scared. I feel that a lot of people, they're like, there is like this fear, like, well, I want to do something, but I don't know where to start, right? Where can I go? So my main advice is like, what's like the main thing that you're most passionate about, right? What's like the thing that like drives you crazy, like there's something happening, you're like, why are they doing that? You're like, it can be reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, criminal justice, immigration, so many things, homelessness, right? Like affordable housing, the economy. um so I think, and find an organization, And it's so easy. Just put in Google organizations that advocate and help for X, Y, and Z issue. And there's gonna be so many organizations. I bet that, you know, every organization is gonna have the little tab of volunteer. And it's so easy. You just fill up your name, your address, your phone number, usually your email, and you sign up into that organization. Right now with the ACLU, we are recruiting a lot of volunteers. In fact, I'm organizing an advocacy at the Capitol on March 10, and I'm planning to have like a big crowd because I want them to just go to a capital and advocate, learn to advocate, you know, learn to lobby, learn how to talk to your legislators, how to talk to your senator, how to talk to your state representative, and how to advocate for these issues that we were talking about previously. In this occasion, is the first time that, well, you know, I'm bringing the Hispanic perspective, bilingual, immigrant-ish. So I think that I want to make it more accessible for Spanish-speaking people, just because we seen so many U.S. citizens or residents that they're just only speaking Spanish, but they feel that they don't have a voice because of the language barrier. So I'm actually recruiting volunteers right now for that event. And I want to get some bilingual volunteers they're gonna take them you know, to our legislator offices and like advocate with them. So yeah, you know, like I said before, it's just like do not be scared, and like Leslie said, just take action, you know. And I know it can be scary as well. Um, because I remember that the first time that I got involved was when I was in college. I was in college, and I was like in the transition in the Trump Obama administration to the Trump administration. So I was also like getting all of that hateful rhetoric and, you know, the first Trump administration. So I experienced all of that. My accent was thicker back then. So I received so many comments of like, that's not English, speak English to me. So, you know, I feel that, but it's, you know, even that, like, I rely on my people, you know, even if I didn't know where to start. I remember that I was like the best friend of my advisor, and my professor, she guided me. So I think that that can be also a really good advice. If you don't know how to start, if you're just like completely clueless, just ask. You know, always ask. Just ask your professor, ask your friends. Even, I don't know, if there is like something, a page that you follow on social media, just send them a DM and just ask. I think that that can be a really good first step. Is just ask the question. There is something that my mom always says, and it's in Spanish, but it's like um sin preguntar no pierdes nada. How to say that? So like, you know, if you don't ask, like even if you ask, you're not losing anything, right? So the worst thing that they can say to you is no, and that's it. So like, why are you losing? So just ask, just throw it in there. So I think that, yeah, just like ask the question, you know, do some research about local organizations that you can support, and just get motivated, you know, get motivated, and just, you know, look your surroundings and look at your friends and look everything that is happening, and just like you can be your own change, you know, you can be your own, you know, the like, don't wait for someone else to do it, you know, like just take the step and start doing it yourself, even if it's like helping your neighbor, or like, you know, helping your friends and your group friends. But like there is always something that we can do as an individual. So like just don't wait for something big, because I think that that's also another thing that we as young people we're like, well, but like, you know, this is like so out of our control, you know, like federal issues, right? Sometimes we focus on federal issues a lot, and we don't realize that like what is like directly impacting us is local issues, and that's when we can have control. So like this is a huge advice for the young people out there. You know, like if you want to volunteer for campaigns that are local elections, that's what's gonna change our local responses, you know. For example, we just elected the first Latina mayor in the history of the state of Oklahoma, my friend Amanda Sandoval, and she flipped that city from Republican to Democrat. One of the most Republican cities in the whole state of Oklahoma, Bethany, and she won by 46 votes because she got volunteers, a lot of young people, college Democrats, they were coming and help. So that's how you can change an outcome, you know? So like, you know, even if it's volunteering for these like local elections, that's gonna be a huge change. So always, you know, like my main thing is like don't focus on the things that you cannot control, because at the end of the day, you're gonna get super overwhelmed and you're gonna just want to go to bed and just put your blankets on top of you and don't get out of there never. So just focus on what you can control, you know, and what you can take action, even if it's going to a city rescue place and just help your dogs, you know, but there is always something that you can do about it.
I think a lot of the country, a lot of organizers across the country are finding out for the first time what it's like to organize under a very Republican administration. And obviously, you guys in Oklahoma have been working under Republican leadership for a very long time and organizing in a grassroots way under a political scene that is less than favorable to what you're trying to do. Any organizing tips that you would give to people across the country who've never had to work under Republican leadership?
I will say grassroots organizing. You know, I believe in the power of community. I know that I have said it again, you know, before, and I'm gonna say it again. Grassroots organizing. This is gonna be the moment of just, you know, I feel that this is the moment where building the relationship with the person, let's say like you're canvassing, right? So you're knocking their doors. That 30 seconds, you know, conversations, a minute conversation that you used to have, now it has to be a little bit deeper, right? You have to like have the willingness to build that relationship and be more like go more in depth, because it's not gonna work if you just like, oh well, hi, can you please vote for this and whatever, only no, like, you know, now is the moment of like actually like show the community that you're there for them and that you care. When this is like, I'm thinking in the political way when it comes to like, you know, campaigns, in the organizing, you know, like just regular organizing, I think that, you know, like I said before, just relying on your community, building safe spaces. For us in Oklahoma, I was actually yesterday for Valentine's Day. There's like a new organization that is called the Dyke March, and is they took that idea from an event in New York. So they brought it here. And they're like, well, we're gonna do like a dyke march and we're gonna start doing events for dykes. And dykes can be lesbians, bisexuals, women, trans women, whatever you can be, right? And it was really cool because, you know, it was like the first time that I've been here in Oklahoma for like 6 years. And it was like the first time that like I was in a bar, in a lesbian bar, where only lesbians, right? So I was like, okay, there is some lesbians in Oklahoma, right? But and of course they are, but you know, you're so isolated that you really think that there's not, because the dating scene is terrific here. But you know, it's cool to see that there is also these safe spaces where you can be yourself and when you know that you're gonna be accepted and loved. So I think that on this hateful and terrible and crazy administration, I think that the best tip, in my personal opinion, for organizing is building those safest spaces. It can be in immigration, it can be in LGBTQ rights, it can be in reproductive rights, even if it's like a meeting every 2 weeks, a support group, you know, how are we doing? How are the women in Oklahoma City doing? How are we feeling? You know, you want to talk about it. And it's a good way to like build that relationship, engage, and then educate yourself about what's happening, right? So I think that that's what we're doing with LULAC, that's what we're doing with Women's March, and that's what the Dyke March is doing. And I think that is pretty cool. And I think that that's how liberals and progressives in Oklahoma are surviving, or have survived so far, because like you said, it's not new for us. This is just like, oh well, you know, a little bit more, you know, than what we've been like dealing with before. But we're kind of used to the chaos here, and then the terrific legislation. So it's not something that new. But I think that that's why we're focusing on the local. We're focusing on the local when it comes to like politics, and when it comes to organizing, we're just focusing on building those safest spaces, and just like show people that, like, you know, there are more people like them here, and that they're loved and accepted.
Thank you so much. It's very inspiring to hear that. Um, Not to put you all on the spot, and you all have mentioned many great things uh, for advice and other things, but I don't ever do a podcast without leaving room for closing thoughts. So, in any order that you all want, before I close out, I want to give each of you briefly a moment to give any closing thoughts, whether it's taking care of your mental health throughout this time, more great organizing tips, specific to college students or other people, maybe people in rural areas, whatever it may be. Just want to give you the floor.
Well, I want to give Leslie and Nicole the last word here. So I'll just say, I think that in political spaces, there's been a tension between people who say organizing and protest is super important, and those who say, maybe voting is more important. And I don't think that, I think what we found here today is that I don't think that there's a necessarily, it should be a conflict between the two. I think that everything comes together around community. And what we need to do in this moment of fear, of anxiety in our country and in our communities is to first say, let's come together, let's have these protests, let's have these places where communities can be built. And then once we have that group of people that we know we're supported in, then maybe we go off and say, well, what campaigns can we vote for? What candidates can we support? What causes can we advocate for? What bills can we defeat? And choose our battles accordingly, but start from that foundation of community.
For sure. I would definitely agree. I definitely agree with David. I think community is the biggest thing ever. Especially after the election, we've all felt fear, like Nicole has said. But that's just another reason why we need to stick together and rely on each other and advocate for one another and just take action. I know it's pretty fearful right now and it doesn't look bright, but I think we have to look at hope and a hope that can be a change in the future and that we can make a difference. I believe we just need to advocate for each other and go that extra mile and take action and have that conversation that you may not have had in the past, but now that things are different now, I think it's important to see each other's perspective, have an open mind, and yeah, take action.
I think that I have like two main points. My last thoughts. The first one is we need to start being so divisive within each other. We're seeing so much division within our communities. I see, and it's sad. It's sad, the immigrant community. There are some immigrants that are like, well, you deserve to go back. Or, between the LGBTQ people, there are some gay people or some, yeah, some gays or some lesbians. They're super hateful towards trans people. So, I feel that those little fights are what divide us and what is not making us like have like that strong sense of community and party as well. That's why I think that that's one of the biggest issue in the Democrat Party, is that divisiveness. So I think that we need to stop seeing those, like those little things that are not really important at this moment and just focus on what we can like achieve together. Because when we come together, when you come like as a minority, like LGBTQ people, immigrants, just indigenous, just every type of minority that is struggling or is being vulnerable, harmed by this hateful rhetoric. If we come together as a collective effort, that's where we're gonna be strong, and that's what like our movement is gonna like really is really gonna impact. So I think that we have to work on that on that unity. We definitely need to work on that, even among our communities, on our own communities. That's something that I preach daily to Hispanic communities. Like we need to, like let's love each other. Like yeah, you have maybe your papers, but this person, they didn't have the accessibility of the privilege that maybe some of us had, right? So we have to like um we have to go back to that humanity and see people as people that are human beings trying to like, do the best that they can in this life and in this society. But our system is just not designed for them to have a very easy life. And I think that some people forget that. um, my other thought is mental health. Is, like please like take care of your mental health. Me like someone that like I personally like I start struggling with my mental health since I started working in politics. Is I feel that it comes with a job. And I talked to so many organizers, and it's like, is this normal? Yeah, that's normal. So like, is, you know, like your daily, you're seeing like the, you know, the so many negative things that is just very mentally draining. So you have to take care of your mental health. Like I said before, even if you have to limit yourself to like 2 times on Instagram or 1 time a day on TikTok, but you know, our brains, our minds are not designed for that amount of information at once. So we need to take that in mind. And you know, if you can, please go to therapy. I know it's not affordable for so many people, but if you have the chance, go to therapy, go on a walk, do exercise. Exercise is so helpful in this, okay, in these crazy times. Like personally, I'm doing boxing because it really helps me to release all of that, you know, things that like your body constantly like, you know, takes from other people, because we're energy, right? Like, so our energies just get filled by negative energy, so we need to release all of that negative energy. And so, you know, so just like find different outlets, find different avenues, even if it's journaling helps so much as well. But just find different avenues to take care of your mental health, because you know, this is just the beginning. There are like 4 years, you know, we need to stay strong these next 4 years. And it's gonna be just battle and coming another battle and another battle. And, you know, it's not gonna work if we burn ourselves so easy. So we need to just like take care of ourselves. And if it's okay to say no, you know, it's okay if you don't feel, I don't know, mentally strong to go to a next demonstration. It's okay if you don't feel, uh, mentally strong to go to a next event, to go and knock doors. It's okay to say no, because I've been there, you know. I like the first 3 weeks of January, I was in all of the demonstrations, and by the 4th week I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And I didn't go to any of the demonstrations the last week because I was like, it's mentally draining. And yeah, I want to be there for my community, but like also I have to take care of myself. So just take care of your mental health, please. Is a huge priority. And yeah, thank you so much for hosting this, Delnaz and David. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I really like the message of unity from all of you. And one thing I would like to add, you said have different outlets, which I totally agree with. And for me, what I realized is I need to keep my other passions as well. Like I do competitive cheer, for example. And so, you know, every Monday night I'm there. And it doesn't have to be totally separate because we obviously all cared so deeply about these issues. So it's really a bit unrealistic to say we totally block it out, but and sometimes I'll be at practice and then I'll just be sitting at it for during break with somebody and then I'll start talking to them about these issues and I see that they're so eager to talk about it as well. And so yeah, in some cases it's good to um, put it aside for an hour later, but at the same time you don't have to fully separate yourself um, to release a bit of your stress. Because I think that's what people struggle with. They say, well, how can I just forget this is all happening, But it's just all about balance. Um, and lastly, I just want to mention we all need to have hope. Leslie, you said we all need to hope for change and for a better future. And I think that's great because while you also described the work you're doing, and Nicole, you as well, we all must have hope because without that, it's really hard to do the work. So on that note, thank you so much for joining. You guys are all so incredible, and thank you for your work.